I'm ready.
Okay, Serpentine is the short film. Andy Young is the co-director and writer. Really interesting film, kind of
Thank you.
about like a twist into a cult. We're not expecting it, and then I guess it kind of occurs. I was reading your blog interview, and it's very revealing what you were saying. It seems like this film was almost like a therapy for you.
Yeah, I think it definitely was. I started writing it. I was in a relationship with somebody in my 20s who grew up in a cult. And so once I left that relationship, I sort of started understanding some of the things that I'd experienced with that person and then learning at the same time about cults, just being interested in it. And I just found so many parallels between the things that I had experienced in that relationship and the way that I'd been treated to a lot of similar tactics that cult leaders use. And so I think during the pandemic, I had a lot of time. And so I just sort of started exploring this and it kind of just came out. And then through the process of a short film, I created a cult in my head, which was then turned into a short film.
Can I ask the boyfriend, was he did he leave the cult?
Yeah, so he grew up in the cult, and then once he was able to leave the house on his own, he left. But then never really dealt with any of the stuff that's associated with being in a cult. Um, so yeah, he did eventually get out, but
Because
yeah,
it's kind of interesting how like you think that you're healed because you got out of something,
right.
but then the all the kind of lingering effects that occurred, yeah,
I mean, you just don't even think about it. It's so ingrained in your subconscious, unconscious mind, just the way that you interact with everything and the way that you interact with the world and people. It became so interesting, not just learning about his experience, but also then hearing about other people's experiences who were in cults and how long it took them to like deprogram themselves. Um, because they didn't even realize what was happening until it was far beyond, you know?
yeah. There's a kind of there's certain metaphors too because I not the meaning that I like I'm not trying to be coy, but basically sometimes people's families are cults in a sense, right?
Oh,
Where
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Totally. Totally. I mean,
yeah,
it's like, I mean, the word narcissism is sort of thrown around a lot now,
yeah.
but you have to have like a certain really intense, enigmatic, narcissistic personality to be a cult leader. And there are so many people who have parents or family members, et cetera, who display really similar traits. So it could even be, a cult doesn't necessarily have to be more than one person. It's just as long as you have one person following you, that's what it is.
One could argue that a certain top leader in the United States could be have that personality as well.
I would not disagree with that.
Yeah,
I would definitely not disagree with that.
yeah. But it could be anybody we're talking about. Okay, so did you make this film? Obviously, you're fantastic in the film.
Thank you.
Like, when you were writing it? This is set for you to star in.
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of a vehicle for me to do the thing that I love doing. So I started off writing, and I wanted to make a short, and I sort of knew that, and I was working on one during COVID, and sort of wasn't very inspired by it, and then sort of started thinking more about this. And so it was always meant to be something that I could perform in, that I could be in, that I could explore. And then I think just by virtue of it being such a personal story, even though it is fictionalized, um, just made sense. Yeah.
Is there a larger script within the confines of this short?
There is a larger story in development currently.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is a larger world, there's a larger community, etc. And so I guess this was kind of approved as a proof of concept as well at the same
Yeah.
time. So yeah, I'm definitely working on the longer form, the larger version. So hoping to eventually have that produced and up and
All
going.
right, so we're it's a really great tone wise the film because we don't really know where we're headed, right? So it's almost like I like certain films I don't really. Of course, we're gonna put the synopsis of your film, but it's
Right.
like it's almost like don't read the synopsis because it's better if you don't.
Right. I
Yeah,
think I wanted to like one of the things that I was thinking about when I was writing it too is this like the nature of being in that environment, right? You sort of don't. you don't really have anything to grasp onto, so you're not really sure, is this good or is this bad? Like, oh, she said something that's kind of right, but also really a little bit off at the same time. So I did send it to a few people actually without telling them, like obviously giving them a trigger warning, but not telling them what it was about. And it was so interesting to hear people's perspectives and just the ending as well. People were like, "Oh, now what?" So,
Quick segue, because I want to curious what you just said. Do we need to give people trigger warnings? Is that a thing?
um, I I do just because I don't necessarily know. I mean, the first scene very explicitly talks about domestic violence and abuse.
Yeah.
So I think just I always err on the side of being safer. Um, and sometimes people are really triggered by that emotional manipulation.
Yeah. But it
Um,
almost kind of ruins the story in a sense. That's basically my
kind
argument
of,
against it.
yeah, yeah, kind of. Um, I decided against putting a trigger warning quite literally at the beginning of the film saying just FYI. And I think obviously having the synopsis, you sort of do get a pretty clear indication of, okay, this is going to be dealing with a certain themes, certain ideas, that if you're sensitive to those, maybe take caution when watching.
So we're like I was talking about the film for a second. So your character is kind of alone on a road. So you can see there's scars on her face. Done really great makeup job, by the way.
Thank you.
And I'm just removing myself watching it for the second, third time.
Hmm.
So, and then all of a sudden she's like in with her music. She's obviously gone through something, and then someone, almost like cliche kind of red pickup truck
Yeah.
basically picks her up, and then she's in this environment it's like oh that's like almost like a trigger right there. It's like oh no, but then
Hmm.
she's in this environment where like oh they're there to help her. Like it's a female kind of like maybe they've been through the same thing before. This is a good environment. So
Hmm.
that's like the twist, right? Where like because probably your character needs someone like this, like a kind of like comforting environment off the road in a nice house, nice home. But
Yeah.
that's how they get you, I guess,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, anybody who's hitchhiked before knows that there's the possibility of it
Yeah.
could go one of two ways, right? And so one of the things that we talked about was this idea of how does Louise get discovered? Like how does she find herself in this situation? And so it's part of the thing that they go through when they drive around and they find people who are hitchhiking and find their story. Um, and then slowly but surely, as they go through this sort of quote unquote treatment program with Davy, sort of understanding, she's gathering information about them, about what they're vulnerable to. And then as the film progresses, you just realize, oh, this is not what this girl needs. This is not the environment that she
Yeah.
needs, you know?
But you
Yeah,
need something. That's the problem is that like when we're alone and we're like vulnerable and we're
yeah,
like traumatized, it's like you hope that there's good in there. There's good out there, right? But that's the dark side of life. And even in this comfortable Western world that we live in, it's like there's people taking advantage of you, right? Like
totally.
that's the way it is.
Totally. I think also there's a certain like arrogance that surrounds this perception of like, oh, well, I could never find myself in that situation. How could these people find themselves in these positions? Where the reality is like, if you have been broken down completely emotionally,
Yeah.
psychologically, in anything, really, it doesn't have to be an abusive relationship, but just generally,
Yeah.
you're vulnerable to a point, to an extent where you could find yourself in these kinds of situations.
100%.
If somebody's saying they're helping you, they want to help you, they're giving you housing and you don't have housing,
Yeah.
like you can find yourself there so easily.
That's a stereotype. Like it's like they think it's an intelligence thing. Like if
Right,
you're smart, you're not gonna be vulnerable.
right.
But it's like the addiction of any kind, right? It's like when you're low, it's an emotional thing. It's like you're just looking for something, some sort of hope, I guess, right? So
Yeah. Someone to hold you up in some kind of way, help you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so you got Madeline to co-direct it with you because obviously you're basically in every scene,
Yeah.
and you wrote the script, so you're very close to it. Obviously, when did you bring Madeline? Did you kind of how did you feel that it was good to the co like have a co-director help you
Yeah,
out
I
the
don't
first time out?
I don't think I would have been able to do it on my own.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much happening. It was the first time that I'd produced and written and, done all of this before. So brought Madeline on pretty early on. And the script went through various evolutions in terms of how do we refine this to make it to sort of set that tone to make it so that we're exploring these themes, but they're not super explicit. Um, and so it was great to have an extra set of eyes and a creative vision. And Madeline's made numerous short films herself and is a filmmaker. And so having an additional perspective and somebody there to sort of talk through these ideas was so helpful. Really great. Yeah.
And then so she was okay to jump on board.
Mhm.
Like, so how did you guys prepare for the shot list? Did you guys like storyboard things, or like how did you go through the process of putting the film together?
Yeah, there was some storyboarding. We worked a lot. I mean, Casey, our DP, is absolutely incredible. Most of our career, Madeline and I are based in New York. Everyone else is in either Albuquerque or Santa Fe or elsewhere around New Mexico. So it was really fun to work with Casey, and she just has such a sharp eye. And to be able to work with somebody who knows the landscape so well. In addition, the house that we were using, they let us go over there beforehand and sort of scope it out a bit. So there was an idea. So we weren't going in totally blind. And of course, an indie shoot and small budget, short times. So of course there are certain things that get lost in production, but then, in the editing room, you make up for it in a different kind of way and it comes together in a magical way, I guess.
You shot it in New Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah, we shot it in Abiquiu, so it's about an hour outside of Santa Fe, in the mountains, and it was unreal. So
Was
cool.
there a reason why you wanted to shoot there instead of like kind of an urban environment?
Yeah, I mean, the original plan was to film in New York, somewhere upstate or on the East Coast. And Madeline actually brought up the idea of the fact that she'd always wanted to make a film in Santa Fe in New Mexico. So we sort of started exploring the idea and just thinking about, where a lot of these types of communities exist, geographically speaking, the Southwest and sort of that specific desert part of the country, there's so much of this kind of action that's happening. There are so many communities that live in isolation out there, whether they be religious communities or just spiritual communities or just communities in general. So it actually like really lended itself to the story and supporting this idea of being isolated. I think the isolation of the environment itself is in and of itself a character in the story because there's just nothing around,
Yeah,
no one available to run to help, you know?
yeah. Like it's a good metaphor for like yeah the like yeah there's no other influences out there except for this, right?
Literally.
So there's some nice direction there's something very subtle in the beginning scene where like there's like a long scene, like maybe 3 4 minute scene with the cult leader or whatever you want to call her at the
Mhm.
beginning, but you separate the camera, and it's something subconscious for the audience where like they're not connected, right?
Mhm.
Like you don't, I don't know. I'm assuming that was a choice for you guys to do that. Where like they're separated, like the way you did the shot list, right? So if it was a real comforting environment, they're together. She's comforting her. She's making her a part of the unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so you're kind of seeing with your direction, you're kind of giving us the clover the insights of what this is really about, I guess.
Yeah, it's like they're sharing space on the same couch, but there's still very much a distance,
Yeah, exactly.
which
Yeah.
like speaks to Louise's sort of reticence to fully trust the process, but it also speaks to Davy's need to like establish herself in a certain sense of like power and authority. Um, and we sort of shot in multiple different angles of both Louise and Davy and found that this kind of the way we edited it really lended itself so that they were in the same room having the same conversation, but there was still some kind of disconnect between them. Um,
Yeah.
Kind of like, separating yourself almost as if it's a therapy session, but being too intimate to be therapy. Um, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's great. It's really great the way you did it.
Thank you.
And then there's another scene with Sean. Is it sorry, is it that's the actor, but it's Marshall, that's the
Yeah.
character, right? And it's in the kitchen and it's very like a long frame where like they're in the same frame, but they're like he's in the foreground, she's in the back, and vice versa. He kept on cutting back and forth, right?
Mhm.
So there's like this you're showing the space between the two of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean the whole thing with Marshall is that he's somebody who's been brought into the group but has found himself now in this position where he's like helping women along the way. So there's still a power dynamic there as well, because though they are like cohabitating together and they're supposed to be theoretically developing a relationship, he's still a part of the community, a part of her, treatment of getting better. Um, which of course, as the film transpires, the lines become a little blurred. But I mean, and Sean is just like such a commanding actor. He's such an incredible person to work with. But the distance between them being able to have those private moments that you can see and also see the person in the background, I think lended itself to their experiences mutually.
And then like a lot of long shots, especially outside, right? The beginning scene of the film, and
Yeah.
then when she's sitting on the stool, I guess, right?
Yeah, yeah. For
So
some reason, that shot in particular was one that I was very adamant about. Like, I just want this to be a long one. We don't know what she's doing. Like, sort of continuing on with the whole thing. We don't know what she's doing. She walks to the stool, she does her thing, and then goes back inside.
so we're rooting for this character, right?
Yeah.
So you got us
Hopefully.
emotionally involved.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Hopefully.
No, we are like the way you establish her, right?
Yeah.
So, because she's gone through some shit, and then she's gonna take it out on the stool, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Which, like, that in and of itself, the whole thing is so absurd. It's just kind of insane and ridiculous. But once again, you're in this environment and you're being told that this is going to help you and it's going to be good for you. So you go, okay, well, why not? Um, and then to walk back into the kitchen and just be like, yeah, it felt great. I'm feeling fine, you know? Um, yeah.
yeah. So I have to ask, did you show this to your the boyfriend or no?
Oh God, no.
Okay.
No, 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 no. I don't talk to him anymore.
No, I didn't know if you just like you know how weird we are with like social media and stuff like that, Facebook,
Yeah.
whatever. I was just curious, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, I would be fascinated to. I don't think he's the kind of person that's aware enough to be able to see himself in it,
oh,
but
okay.
um, it would be interesting to get some kind of response or find out what the idea is behind.
So where did you find this? Like, I know, like, who found this kind of like location in the middle of nowhere, this
Yeah,
house?
I actually found it on Airbnb, and
Oh, great. Okay.
the woman who owns the property is also a documentary filmmaker,
Okay.
and um, sort of talked to her about whether she felt comfortable. I grew up in Los Angeles as well, and so she actually lives not far from where my mom lives. So my mom met with this woman, and I spoke to Lynn as well, and she felt comfortable having us film there. And so grateful for that because we literally had all of the places that we needed on one location, which was something we were trying to do because we were short in time. So we had these three separate houses that we could use for all these different places. And it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect for what we needed.
Did you change anything with like the art direction or
Not much, no. Most of that was just there. There was a couple things moved around just for the sake of, getting things in frame. But for the most part, that was all just the house.
so it's like that refrigerator that is
That
there?
refrigerator's there. Yep, that kitchen is exactly like that. I think we used a different color shower curtain in the bathroom. Um, but yeah, all of that is exactly there.
So that those refrigerators, I think it was like because like you got me thinking about it. I'm like smug because there's that scene, right?
Yeah.
Smeg, I guess Smeg.
Mhm.
They're like from the 50s and they still work today.
I think they still make new ones, but they just look
Okay.
like the older ones. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean,
Like so they're
that
retroing it, I guess.
yeah,
But
that's like exists all around the house too. There's so many like little retro knickknacks and all kinds of stuff, which was great.
so you're seeing that they're like so they're not from the 50s, they're kind of like they're the retro of the 50s, I guess, right? They're so they're new,
Yeah,
but okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. But because I know that these old refrigerators that are in people's garages from suburbia still work, right?
Oh, I
So
bet. I bet they're like tanks. Those things were built to last forever.
yeah, and then we get refrigerators and they last like 10 years, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Exactly. Which is the point. That's what they're going for.
what's sorry?
That's what they're going for, that it'll break down so that then you have to buy a
Yeah.
new one.
It's like
Whereas,
our computers, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah. My computer lasts 5 years because you're on it every day, right? So
right,
it
exactly. And your
breaks
phone, you have
down.
to get a new phone after like, 8 years or something. Same
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Hmm.
So, okay. So talk to me about I don't want to give too much away because I think people should I hope it's doing well in the festival circuit. It seems like it is.
Hmm.
So tell me about the editing experience because this is your first film,
Hmm.
and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I'm assuming you realize that this is where it happens. This is where you put the film. This is where the story make is your scenes, your role, like the nuance of your performance.
Yeah.
How was that experience for you?
It was a little weird at first, to be honest,
Yeah.
like, staring at my face all the time. I worked with a fantastic editor, Issa Ghaffari, who I actually know from high school. So I wanted to work with somebody that I trusted really well, to work on this project. And she was game. She was all in it. And it was very helpful to have her perspective just in terms of my own performances, what worked and what she thought worked. And so we worked on it probably for about 6 months, maybe a little bit less than that. But it was difficult sometimes finding the balance between those quiet moments and how long those long stretches of footage come in. But it was so fun to be a part of that process. And then, of course, after that, I had a friend, Stephen Pathé and Jeff, who they are composers, so they composed all of the music for us, which was amazing. Sandy Sounds. And so it all just kind of like came together in a way that I couldn't have asked for better collaborators, honestly.
So were you watching like the footage? Did you watch all the footage of the film?
Hmm. Yeah.
How was that for you? Like basically, like have you done that before where you watched your performance like that?
Yeah. Yeah. I've watched my performance sort of pretty intimately, before. I haven't gone through the experience of like start to finish editing a project. But yeah, like I've watched things that I've been in and I've watched takes or certain things like that. This was the first time though that I went through all of the footage of a project and sort of came up with my favorite takes and comparing them to the things that Issa thought, and really using it all to craft a story. In addition to, the various different angles and the various different shots that we had. There was so much footage that we had that we didn't end up using. Um, so choosing what made the most amount of sense for the story with the way that it was being created was also a, a learning experience, but also super fun.
Because you have to like it's almost like I've talked to with other actor directors before where like they got to remove themselves from the perform, meaning that like you have to look at yourself as not you, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like your vanity has to be it's what's serving the story, not what's serving you, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think at first it was one of those, it was sort of jarring to do, but as we went through the editing process and as we just kept doing it, and I was seeing my face over and over, it became really easy to be objective of like, okay, well, we're using this take and this shot makes more sense or creates for an interesting reaction to this shot, etc. So it became more like a puzzle that you had to put together. Um, than, oh, I don't like the way my face looks in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you do reference to sound design. So sound design is key. So
Hmm.
this is almost like I listen, I know your experience. Like I know like your dad was a cinematographer, so you've been on set
Hmm.
a million times. So you know how a film gets made. I'm
Yeah.
not, yeah. But putting it together like this, like from beginning, from development in your head, from the ending, this is almost like your film school in a sense.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I grew up going to set and talking to my dad about movies and stuff like that. But that's one part of the process.
Yeah.
That one specific part. I've never really been involved in post-production, and I haven't written a script before that I've then produced. So it was quite literally a crash course in filmmaking, which was super challenging, but really rewarding and amazing.
Who's your dad? Like, so your dad was a cinematographer, or he still is a cinematographer.
He's not anymore. His name's Tony Godios or Anthony Godios. Um,
Okay.
so he's worked on lots of stuff. I think his first gig was a working on the Italian Job and sort of worked. My family's from the UK, so he started off in the UK and then we moved to Los Angeles and then he sort of kept going from there. Um, and I think that I got my love of film from him, just talking about movies and um, I started acting in community theater when I was younger. Um, so being able to talk about movies with somebody who knows a lot about movies and somebody
Yeah,
really good at their job is kind of something that I took for granted, I think, when I was a kid, but now I
sure.
loved it. Yeah.
Well, this is your reality, right? You don't know any other reality except the one you grew up in, right? So
Yeah, literally. Literally. My parents could never tell me that I couldn't be an artist because they were
yeah.
both artists. So forget it.
But you're at the same time you made your own life in a sense where like you're
Yeah.
like you're not a classic nepo baby where like your dad got your jobs. It's like you basically made your own career, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah. And of course, he's introduced me to a few people
of
along the way.
course, yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but yeah, I think it's always been important to me for me to be able to establish myself in a way that feels authentic to me.
yeah,
So this story feels like the first thing that I've really put out that's very, very me.
yeah,
And it's exciting to keep doing that and keep making films and,
yeah.
you know,
And people don't like a lot. I'm sure a lot of people do who are watching this, but make it on be on big budget sets. It's kind of boring, right? So if you're not working on the because it's so nuanced and it's so slow, right? So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, even just working as an actor on, big budget productions, it's
yeah,
such a different experience. Like, I love being on indie film sets because you have to be a little scrappy sometimes and you're working in close proximity with everyone and it's usually a smaller crew. It's just different. The way that you relate to people and your collaborators is so much more intimate and fulfilling.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
So according to IMDb, I don't know, it's never 100% accurate. It's sort of like Wikipedia in a sense, but it says you did a day on House.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
My
How was
dad,
that
so there's an
experience?
example actually. My dad worked on House, so he got
Okay.
me an audition. So that's how I actually got on that series. But
Amazing.
yeah,
How was the House
I'm not
experience?
totally,
No,
above
no, no, no,
give me
no.
an audition.
Everybody's guilty of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would be, I understand the frustration that people have, obviously, because there are so many people who are trying to do this thing. Um, but it's the same thing as like any industry. If somebody knows somebody that can help you, then why wouldn't you take the opportunity, right?
Yeah. I look at it like this. I'm from a small town. I knew but nobody, but at the same time, my kids could like it's like you're dumb if you don't take advantage of it, right? So
Right.
yeah.
It becomes annoying when it's like, oh, you're going to be in every film now? Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true that, right? So yeah.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah. So but basically how was that experience like working on a TV show like that, which was huge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 17 at the time, I
Yeah.
think. So it was really it was interesting being on the other side of the camera because I've been on set so many times
Mhm.
that actually being an actor and a performer was a unique experience in terms of film because I'd only really done theater at that point. So it was really fun. It was fun to do it and decide like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do for a living. And just to be in that environment, I mean, it was the number of people that were on set was kind of insane. And it's TV, so everyone's moving so fast. No, there's never any time ever. Nobody has
Yeah.
any time. Um, so just being in a different kind of environment like that, I was not used to being somebody who works. I was used to being a voyeur.
Yeah.
So it was a fun experience. Once again, kind of a crash course.
And because it's so fast, you gotta nail your role. You gotta do like it's like you're a piece of the you're caught in the wheel.
Yeah,
You better hit it because it's like you said, it's like they got to get their 8 pages a day, right? So
right, right. And
yeah,
everyone's like running around like, something's on fire all the
yeah.
time.
And then you
Yeah.
worked on the Nick, which is a very underrated show, right? So
Yeah.
that must have been an interesting experience.
Yeah, it was incredible. Steven Soderbergh is obviously a very talented
Yeah.
creator. And so I think that was actually the first time that I'd really experienced somebody who was a director who also shot
Yeah,
his.
he shoots all his films, right?
Yeah. So, he's sitting there, Steven Soderbergh, he's sitting there on an apple crate, like with, the camera in his lap, sort of. It felt intimate, more intimate than House for sure, but it was still a really big budget production. And I ended up meeting um, some people on that shoot, some actors, some of whom I'm still connected with today. Um, and I love a period piece, so put me in a period costume, and I'm into it 100%. But he's so whip smart. He's just, he'll give you a very direct note. He's sort of a no nonsense director, at least in the experience that I had with him.
Yeah.
Which was incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm sure you just like it's like even subconscious, like you're learning so much from you now as a director, like from those experiences, right? So
Yeah. And every director is different, right? Every director is different. Every set is different. So,
yeah,
you sort of like pull pieces of what you think works for you and what doesn't. And moving forward, directing things, I'm sure that I will do things differently than the way that I did on Serpentine, and then continue to evolve until I get to a point where I'm like, this is my thing.
yeah. But it's they are the generals, right? Like the directors, always the generals.
Yeah,
They're always it's their energy that creates the energy of the set.
right, 100%. You can
Yeah.
feel it. It's palpable, very palpable.
So what? So by the way, it's a great film. Congratulations for your
Thank you.
first time out, right? Like I said, from beginning to end, and you're just a really you're a fantastic actor too. So
Thank you.
yeah. So
Thank
it's like a very nuanced, subtle performance, meaning that like you don't even the shot like you don't give yourself the close up when you give your when you it serves the story. Like you said, you wanted that long shot when she beats up the chair,
you. Yeah.
the stool, but you don't give yourself the close up. You're like you give yourself like you that's what that shot deserved for that particular film, right? So you're like so that's almost like the metaphor for your performance in this film, where like you don't give yourself those like I'm like mad at the world and like men suck, whatever, right? But it's just, you know what I'm trying to say. It's like it's very nuanced. It's like very like layered. So
Thank you.
congratulations.
I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. You know
It
what I'm
was-
saying, right? So yeah.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, for sure. Also, being close up on my face in that moment probably would have been so intense. But yeah, I think it's important to like see what makes sense and what serves the story
Yeah.
more than, you know, especially if you're an actor, director, actor, like then what you look like. And I think that was a really great learning experience for sure.
Like just for your real, I'm sure your agent would want you to have that close up, but it's like, yeah.
So you
Right.
can find another one in the film. Yeah.
So okay, so what are you doing next? Are you going to make another film?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of different things that I've sort of got my fingers in right now. I'm developing this and working on this continually. I go through periods where I get really jazzed about it and then sort of need to take a break. Um, I'm also working on another short film that I'm writing, just a really short, going for something under 10 minutes, because obviously this one is quite a bit longer. And then in addition to that, I'm sort of doing my own DIY documentary. Where I just talk to people that I've known for a long time about New York. I've been here for 14 years now, and I have my own very complicated feelings about this city, and I just love and want to hear more about other people's complicated feelings, whether they love it, whether they hate it. Um, yeah, so I'm working on a bunch of different things right now.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because you're from Los Angeles, right?
yeah, yeah. I grew up in LA.
I just talked to somebody last, like maybe 4 days ago, who grew up in, born and raised in New York. He lives in Los Angeles.
It seems the pipeline is like we flip-flop across,
Yeah,
And then I'm sure that eventually I know that I will end up in LA. But I I've been saying I'm gonna move out of New York for I don't know, 10 years now and I haven't done it. So what's up with that? Like, why am I still here? I think that's sort of the impetus to
Uh,
explore more about that. So I'll be doing really short clips and documentaries and sort of posting them on places. And maybe eventually, once I get to a point of having enough footage, I'll think about turning it into a feature of some kind.
well, for someone who lived there himself, who went to
Yeah.
school there, it sucks you in.
Oh
And if
yeah.
I wasn't Canadian and I couldn't live, if I was, I had to leave because I was not from the country, but I'd probably still be living there too, right? So there's something about it that sucks you in.
It really does. It's like it'll slap you in the face and give you a kiss at the same exact time. That's like what New York is.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, intoxicating for sure. So
Whereas in LA, you kind of can navigate and still be yourself. It's like New York is like, it's like you have to like change a little bit to like morph into the city.
yeah,
It's
I mean
my
it's
perspective, at
it's
least.
very unforgiving, you
Yeah.
know. It's very unforgiving to live here and I think that you sort of there's maybe a little bit of armor that you have to wear. Um and to compare New York and Los Angeles, like it feels so challenging for me because my perspective of Los Angeles is obviously predominantly from growing up and being a younger person. But yeah, I love it here and I hate it at the same time. So, I'm like, what is that? So I'm interested about other people who love it and hate it.
That it sounds like a really cool documentary. So
Cool.
yeah,
Thanks.
I see where you live on. Obviously, I'm not going to say it, but on the Film Freeway page. So
Oh yeah,
yeah, so you're there. So
I'm in it. I'm in Brooklyn.
yeah, but you're there in Brooklyn, basically.
Oh
So
yeah, I am right here in Brooklyn most of the time in
yeah,
this seat exactly.
yeah. Okay, one last question. We had you for a while, but I gotta ask you because you said gave a really interesting movie response to what film you watched the most times in your life.
Oh
You said a
yeah.
couple films, but you remember what the first film you said?
I don't remember the first one I said. Um, I know I said that I watched Love Actually a lot.
Yeah, Love Actually with your mom. Yeah,
We watched it
which
every
is sweet.
Christmas,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
Did I say Paper Moon?
You said Paper Moon. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Very vividly remember watching Paper Moon with my dad for the first time. The line about that Tatum O'Neal says about, the woman's bladder being the size of a peanut, I thought was the funniest thing I'd ever heard.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that movie will forever be intensely nostalgic to me.
Peter Bogdanovich, who's like made some really great films, right?
Yeah.
So, but black and white and period. You said you like your period piece, right? So, father
Yeah.
and son. Sorry, father and daughter. Apologies. Father and daughter acting together, right? So,
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, and those are the kinds of films that like I grew up watching,
yeah,
that's the kind of stuff that like my dad was showing us. And of course, it's sometimes I was like, why are we watching this? This is so boring. Um,
that film's. I don't know. I should watch it again. I watched it in about a decade, but
Paper Moon kept me enthused. The first time I watched
yeah,
Alien,
it's fast paced.
yeah, the first
It's
time I watched
new,
Alien,
right?
no, I think I was like maybe 8 or 9, and I was
Okay,
like, this is so boring. Why are we? And then of course,
gotcha. Yeah, yeah,
watching it as I got older, it was amazing.
yeah.
Um, but I really think I take for granted the fact that I just grew up watching really amazing movies.
Yeah, I remember watching that film for the first time, and I was like, it's like the tone. It was like, oh my God, it's so like it's really
Yeah,
interesting. Right? Like
it's so funny too. It's
it's
so
funny, and it's crazy, and it's like, but it's emotional. Like obviously, it's a love story between the father and the daughter, right? So
right, right, right. I mean, but
yeah,
him being a con man as well, and like, that how that complicates things. I loved that movie. I still do.
it was almost like ahead of not like the cliche line, but it was almost like ahead of its time because it is. He's completely terrible dad. Like he's totally flawed. And the movie arc is about him trying to be a good dad, right? That's what his journey is. And like that's you don't see those films in the 70s, right? Even though there's like flawed characters, you don't see that kind of like journey. Usually it's like they sort of came out in the 90s and 2000s, like in
Yeah.
television, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Is he actually her father in the film? I don't feel like they're biologically related. No? Did I make that up?
I don't know. I haven't seen the movie in a decade. I just know that they
Oh,
were father and daughter, so I just assumed that they were father and daughter.
I think they
Yeah.
in the film they aren't actually father and daughter. He
Okay.
just like starts to use her as a means to be able to
But he
sell his
needs,
Bible.
yeah, which is
Exactly.
even more complicated, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Which then creates this like amazing character for Tatum O'Neal because she is like a hustler at the age of like 7 or
Yeah.
whatever, however old she was. I mean, just like an incredible, incredible movie. Love
But
it.
we need support. We just like your film. We need support. We need love, right?
Right.
We need to, especially when you're a kid. Like she needs a father. She needs like that. She needs somebody to look to who has their back, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the relationship that develops between the two of them throughout the film.
now you're making me watch. I gotta watch it.
You
So
gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. I think it's on Criterion Channel or
hopefully
something.
it's somewhere. Yeah.
You'll
Like
be
all
able to.
these great movies, they're like all these bad movies are like they're on every streaming service, but like these golden gems are possible to find.
Criterion Channel, I feel like they always have something golden.
Okay.
And if not, YouTube. I feel like it's got to be on paper movie's
Yeah.
got to be on YouTube or something.
All right. Great movie, by the way. Thanks for the
Thank you.
time. I got you way too long. And
That's okay.
let's
Good time.
let's talk again when you do make your next film. Please make another
Yes.
film.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.